and we kind of got Agnes Schönfelder, who is joining us from Mannheim. And I will pass over to you, Agnes, to share your screen and share your lessons learned and experience from working in Mannheim. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I would like to work like Valencia with you through our Climate City contract in the action plan part. So hand in hand going through the paper, but we have no time in 20 minutes really to read the climate action plan. But the most important things I would tell you from the story of where it began and where it is at the moment. So you see the cover is a climate city contract, so the action plan. So you have for each part, for the commitment, for the action plan and the investment plan, a paper, and you have a guideline. And we have approach with a local Green Deal Mannheim, because the local Green Deal was the first part of the story. So first we were a pilot city for a local Green Deal in Mannheim since 2021, and then came the EU mission Climate Neutral Cities by 2030. And then we decided if we are a local Green Deal city and to make it seriously, then we have to join the EU mission. And so this is from a webinar, from the CCC webinar from Net Zero Cities, and the 3 parts of the climate action plan are shown. And that is what we recommend to start for all cities, to have an overview, what is already on board, and use the existing strategies and concepts, and then try to integrate all the activities and build on that, make new analysis and pathway scenarios and approaches. So you see with a green color what is already on board in Mannheim before we started to create the CCC, because we have already a SECAP, a Sustainable Energy Action and Climate Plan, with a goal of 2030 via our local Green Deal, because the City Council decided if we are a pilot city for a local Green Deal, then we have to go along the mission, EU mission contributions for climate neutrality by 2030. So there was a strict order to develop our SECAP to the climate neutrality goal 2030. And we have a construction sites we solved already now with to have a nearer look to the systemic barriers, to the indicators and monitoring system, and also financing of action. What we did is to compare the approach from the transition map, you know, all from our Net Zero Cities platform. So with the climate city contract, you walk along this transition map, and then you can fill all the gaps in the action plan. So starting from build a strong mandate, understand the system, co-create portfolio of action, and then take the action. And you see at the end of the line is the CCC Climate City Contract, and on the left side you see the approach for a local Green Deal. It's the same. So building the momentum is building the mandate, then to look at the framework conditions and to create with the stakeholders really deals on the bottom, and you can create deals and put it into your Climate City Contract as an activity. So we see it as a systemic change to use that approach for our climate action plan. So we developed the SECAP 2030 with the EU mission, took the guidelines, and had a look at what questions to answer. And we developed our carbon dioxide inventory along the science-based targets, and we are A-rated in the CDP disclosure. So really proud of that, first time. And we are nearing to the monitoring system with the Climate View dashboard. And we also created framework conditions with a governance team and transition team in Mannheim. So that is where it starts. So first you will be asked in your action plan to give a summary and introduction. What is your story? What is your approach? That is our climate action plan in Mannheim. So we took that one and put it into the middle between the commitment and the investment plan, and that's it. But we tried to really seriously answer the questions in the climate action plan. And so it is designed for the EU mission in all action fields. And we used also the action fields, the 8 ones from the local Green Deal. So it started like in Valencia with the urban transition, not only climate neutrality, but it's in all these action fields, there are activities and actions, co-benefits and impacts for climate neutrality in a city. So the part A1 from the climate action plan is to tell your story about the current state of climate action. So we did it with a carbon dioxide balance from 2020. We have a territorial principle within the city's boundaries, and we developed the balance through the private households, trade and services, municipality, industry, and transport. And a first view also on non-energetic emissions, we try to put into our balance. It's about consumption and nutrition. You see on the left side, and it has a lot to do with the local Green Deal, because we want to have a deeper look into non-technical measures and how to influence the behavior to climate neutrality by 2030. And you have to provide also implemented measures to tell your success story you have already reached. So we put here the main measures in transport, heating system, district heating system, and urban development, and also refurbishment of buildings and so on. Part A2 is to tell the story about current policies and strategies assessment. And we used our assessment from the local Green Deal. So we took all the policies and strategies from the EU level, from the national level, from the federal state level, and from the Mannheim local level along the 8 action fields of the local Green Deal. And we analyzed where are the potentials for really activities, name it as a deal, but it's also activities for climate neutrality in the city. But not only for climate neutral, but also sustainable, healthy and green city. And then at the same time with the CCC, we developed our SAM mobility strategy, Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan. It's under development for 2 more years. And we are developing our Sustainable Urban Development Plan. And we look at all these plans into our CCC and have defined measures for all these strategies. And we look at it in an integrated way. So that is the sense of a local Green Deal, to have integrated policies in your cities and to work together along all the action fields in an innovative way and in a just transition way. So the social benefits, co-benefits are also really important in the Mannheim approach. In part A3, you have to deliver the systemic barriers and opportunities to 2030 climate neutrality. By the way, come to Mannheim. That is only for 1 year. You can see this cable cars here through the National Garden Show in Mannheim. It's a beautiful, beautiful flowers, and you can have a look at it. We started with a stakeholder analysis. We have, for all the actions in our climate action plan, we have developed a SWOT analysis. And we had to look on the interests of the stakeholders, of the difference, and the citizens, and the relevance and influence. And we have also a business climate alliance with all the industry, but also SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises in the city, and developed together with them stakeholder actions and create activities for the climate action plan. And then you will be asked about your participatory model for the city climate neutrality. So you have to develop your CCC with your citizens, with your stakeholders, not alone in the municipality, and then spread it into the city. So we had a scientific monitoring group. We had a steering group through all the municipality. We had online and offline events participation for citizens and a voluntary citizens council. We had 8 strategic groups through the action fields of the CCC. And so at the end, there were a lot of meetings. And at the end, we gave it in the November 2020 to the City Council, who decided to be climate neutral by 2030 with that action plan. And co-creating measures where through the campaign, with your vision, we move mountains. You see on the left side, mountains in Mannheim, there are no mountains, but we move people. And we had that voluntary citizen council. We had a youth summit for the CCAP and Urban Thinkers Campus, and the 8 strategy groups on the climate action plan and the climate alliance of businesses. And we have already used the participatory budget of the city of Mannheim to create activities. Then you will be asked about your system barriers. The first barrier we have identified is a multi-level stakeholder action, because you see that only 1/3 of our carbon dioxide emissions we can influence by activities of the municipality and the partners. And 1/3 is dependent on the EU, federal or state level, and 1/3 of the activities by companies, stakeholders and citizens. So you cannot walk alone through the transition map. And the system barriers too are the framework conditions in the different action fields. So only one example for the built environment, we need a refurbishment rate of 4%. So at the moment we have 1.2, and so we have double it, so 4 times more to reach our goal in the built environment action field. In part B1, you will be asked about your climate neutrality scenarios and impact pathways. And though that is the part you can have a look on your carbon dioxide inventory and your scenario. We have a science-based scenario done together with the IFA Institute, Research Institute in Heidelberg, and together with the Wuppertal Institute, really famous institutes for carbon dioxide emissions. And so we developed the pathway 2, which is an ambitious one, to net zero city with 93% reduction compared to 2020. These are the main challenging parts. How to reach that goal: it's district heating, it's electricity to move it into renewables, and also transport to move it in from conventional fuels to renewables, electricity, and so on. In part B2, you will be asked about your climate neutrality portfolio design. So that is the core part of your climate action plan. So we had this climate action plan, the CCAP 2030 in Mannheim, with all the 8 action fields. And so these in sum are 81 bundle of measures, 300 plus single activities, and we identified 34 top measures which we want to reach very, very fast for the decarbonization. And these are the top measures. Top measures are the climate neutral interventions we had for the EU missions, for the EU mission, and also the ones who have the biggest saving potentials. And additional to the technical measures for the carbon dioxide reduction, we developed for each field also enabling measures. That is really important to have these measures, because before you start to reduce your emissions, you have to have your stakeholders and the municipality and the citizens on board, and to make it happen that they can use all the knowledge and all the technical possibilities. These are the interventions we have developed in our expression of interest for the EU mission. They are now all involved in the CCAP as a top measure. Then you have also to tell your summary strategy for residual emissions. So we have that with our MBV Energy Utility. It's a municipal company, and they try to use carbon capture and carbon utilization. And we have also natural sinks. So we have a reforestation running in Mannheim, and to increase the green in the city as a natural sink. In part B2, you have to tell the indicators for monitoring, evaluation, and learning. And the core part is here our monitoring dashboard with climate view we developed, and we are in progress here. It's not ready, it's not finished, but all the activities of the CCAP are already in the in the dashboard, and now we are working on the indicators to connect the cost scenarios and the indicators and co-benefits, and then we have a fully filled dashboard to steer really the possibilities to climate neutrality. And then you will be asked about your organizational and governance innovation interventions. And here we use our local Green Deal team. So we built now from the project team, we were running to a really office, a local Green Deal office under the mayor. And you see the people with the pictures. And so we hired 8 more local Green Deal managers, one of each responsible for one action field of the local Green Deal, only responsible to go in the working group in the city's administration, to work with them, to create more activities and deals with the stakeholders in the city society. And we have an advisory panel and also city district managers as multipliers on site in the neighborhoods. And then you are asked about social and other innovation interventions. We were part of a lot of social innovation labs in EU projects like SONET, social social innovation in energy transition. And now we are pilot city for the Net Zero Cities platform, or in the EU mission, with a co-lab committed to local climate action building together with Aachen and Münster. Hello, girls, if you are here. And so together we develop social innovation to reduce emissions from consumer behavior. And so we will co-create the House of Change, where the deals will be made with the citizens and stakeholders on bottom up. And Aachen will develop an agency. Mannheim has already an agency, a climate action agency. And Münster will develop a digital tool to help the people to make climate-friendly and sustainable lifestyle decisions. And together we will fill with our co-lab also our climate city contracts with more activities and how to measure the impact of these non-technical measures. That is the focus of our co-lab. In the last part, you have to tell your story about financing of action portfolio, but that is mostly in the investment plan, the third part of the CCC. Here is only to tell a little bit how you will do that. And so we gave an estimation of all investments, and we had a seed financing in the city budget already this year to push the first really important enabling measures that the technical measures will be implemented in the next years. And this is an overview of the seed financing. It's also about personal stuff, but also about subsidy programs, citizen information, and so on. So that was my overview of the climate city contract, and my watch says I have 17 minutes spent on that, so I'm on time. Yeah, are you ready to start your climate action plan? That's the question. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Agnes. That was a really interesting presentation. And you managed to fit a lot into 17 minutes, so well done. We do have a few questions come up. So we've got one here, a question from Penelope from Limassol, Mission Limassol 2030. And how detailed was the Mannheim GHG baseline emissions inventory? Broad question, but maybe it's just a high level.
Yes, it's a high level. We are doing that since many years, and we use the EFOI Research Institute here in Mannheim, though it's a Mercedes for the carbon dioxide emission balances, also reporting to the national level. So it's the best you can get as a city, and it's science-based. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. So just while we wait for a few more questions to come in, I wanted to combine a question that I was having with a question that was asked to Valencia, but was not answered. So there was a lot of talk around citizen engagement, which was great to see, particularly when you talked about bringing citizens into the CCAP process. And did you have a strategy in place to specifically engage with marginalized groups?
So you mean groups that are not easy to reach?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, yes. So we have different approaches to reach them. So we have approaches for the which are more social. So if low income households, so we have special bonus for them, incentive programs tailor-made for these group. It is we are doing with our climate action agency. I'm a CEO of, so I'm knowing what I'm talking. So at the moment we have for tenants a balcony PV program, so they can use a small panel to have their own energy transition, and a lot more of that. For other group, a big group in Mannheim, migrants and refugees, we have special programs and projects to involve them in our city planning. There was a funding project, Migrants for Cities, and they did urban planning for Mannheim, their new home, and decided in a neighborhood about new measures. What we talked about with CoLab, so we will, in CoLab, we will work on that as well. And so we learned that it's not only how to reach the poorer people, it's hard to reach also the rich people. So we will have a look at it in our CoLab.
Great. Thanks, Agnes. Okay. So feel free to put any questions you may have into the chat. While we wait for that, I was wondering if you, having gone through the, obviously you touched upon the CCAPs and the SUMPs and all the various strategies that come together to form the overall, all different strategies coming together to form an overall strategy. Having gone through that process now and engaged in the CCC process, and having submitted, if you could, is there anything that you would like to give advice on that you wish you had known at the start of this process that you know now?
And advice for that integrated way of work. Okay, yeah. We think that the local Green Deal was a good engine for that process, because if you talk only about climate neutrality, it's not, you cannot reach all departments or municipal companies. But if you talk about mobility, green spaces, biodiversity, industry, and so on, so all these from the local Green Deal, then you have 1 or 2 or 3 points in every department or company that, yes, that is our challenge, yes, and so on. So I think that is one secret of the story, that the local Green Deal is a symbol or metaphor which is more helpful than climate neutrality or talking at every time about carbon dioxide emissions, also to the citizens. They are not interested in carbon dioxide emissions, but in health, in green, and so on. More money in the pocket.
Yes, great. Thanks, Agnes. So any more questions, please put them in now. Otherwise, we may move on, but feel free to put your questions into the Q&A if they come up as we go through the rest of the presentation. We will be tracking these, as I said, and we'll try to collate them at the end. So thank you for your presentation, Agnes, and thank you for taking the time to be with us here today.